how would you describe democratic design? Like how would you approach democratic?
You need constraints. That's the difference between art and design, right?
Yeah.
Pushing the designers in a role that is at the service of society.
Let's go. Okay. Can you? It's on. Really? Oh, it's been a while. You didn't tell us. So surprised. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Be Sunder podcast. I'm Moha, your host, and I'm here with Laetitia here today. I'm gonna adjust the microphone for you because it has to be kind of close to you. Okay. Perfect. So, welcome here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for accepting my invitation. Would you please a little bit talk about yourself? What have you done? What do you do? And everything like that.
Wow, big question.
It is a very broad question. Yes.
Well, my name is Laetitia Wolff. I teach here at Design, and I've been doing this for the past 6 years now, since I came back to France after having spent half of my life in the States.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in the south of France, so I had to find a good home to come back to, and I found Design, the Sustainable Design School. I've been doing a lot of projects around design as a tool for change, positive change, design as a strategy for transformation of societies, of organizations, around social and environmental causes. So always the design at the service of things that they haven't thought of tackling yet. Over my career in the States, I played many different roles, but always one I think that facilitates the work of designers and their pushing their ability to test boundaries of how far design can actually be applied. So I worked with design for democracies, design for addressing health issues, design for the underserved communities of the inner cities of Brooklyn, design for women rights and against racism, things like that. I don't know where to start. I mean,
interesting. So, your approach to design is basically systematical. Is that true? Am I right?
Yes, I guess systemic is perhaps a better word, in the sense that I like to think of design as a posture, and as a method, and as a way to enter worlds and address problems. I think it's an amazing lens that provides both creativity and rigor of a methodology, and that gives the possibility of creating possible. That gives design, I think, is something that helps you visualize and realize things. Makes things very real. That's what I like about it. In that broad systemic approach, I've used different ways of being in relation with the designers. So I worked as a storyteller when I was the head of magazines, where I was featuring those designers to tell their stories, and I was shaping their stories and trying to really put the emphasis on process and the importance of knowing how to tell the process of a designer to make it clearer. I worked as a curator to mount exhibitions that would be presented during biennales, such as the Saint-Étienne Design Biennale, International Design Biennale, which I collaborated with them for the past 20 years, basically, either as a curator of exhibitions or a curator of workshops and colloquiums and conferences. So every time there's this idea of creating a platform for dialogue, exchange, and content production. And then I worked essentially when I was affiliated with AIGA, the organization in the States that represents the profession of designers, in a capacity to come up with projects, so almost like a creative director, if you wish, like a big orchestrator, and I would find the parties that I want to work with and the theme that I want to focus on, and again pushing the designers in a role that is at the service of society, not just producing yet another logo for a corporation.
Of course, of course. So like the interdependency was really important in general for you in the design system, basically, like how to work together and how to create a future for like all the people involved, basically.
Yes.
Considering everyone.
You're right. That's what I like to do, I guess. I like to create multi-stakeholder things, like the platforms, groups, that connecting worlds that don't necessarily speak to each other, and that is not necessarily accustomed to working with designer and putting the designer at the table. You can't just say, bring them on. It's like you also have to give roles to these different parties. But if you have a common ground or a common problem to tackle, it's easier to bring the designer at the table.
Okay.
And prevent a tendency, which is to put the designer at the end, like I always say, the cherry on the cake, as opposed to being in the ingredient of the cake.
Okay. But ingredient of the cakes are whom exactly?
But it could be, depending on the type of projects that we're talking about, but it could be like an urbanist, a planner, an architect, a mayor, a technical service of a city, a developer, a non-profit organization. These are often
the user, definitely, no?
The stakeholders.
The stakeholders, of course.
That is in transformation, and that is someone asking for improvement of the current state into a better place, into a better product, a better service, a better something, which is what design facilitates, is improving the lives of people.
Of course.
So if you bring the designer at the table at the beginning, it's easier. The reason why I use place-based examples is because I've been involved in a lot of creative placemaking projects that by definition starts from a place, an address, a geographic neighborhood, a transforming village or community that is somewhat living through a crisis of transformation. So design can be that sort of glue that connects those different actors.
Parts of the society, yes. So what really interests me, I don't like your profession is like very broad. So I wanna like just jump in one of the directions, which was democracy. Democratic design that I heard a lot that you talked about it as well. We had a boot camp about it, which was kind of like involved. Democratic design was involved in it, and I wanted to know, for example, how would you describe democratic design? Like how would you approach democratic design in general?
First of all, if I may say, I would not say democratic design.
How would you define?
I would say design for democracy.
Okay, design for democracy.
It's playing on words, but it's important because I think design tends to be already like charged with a number of qualifiers. It's constantly being specified by the type of industry in which it operates. So it's graphic design and digital design and experience design and architectural design. It's like people don't understand what the heck design is in the end. It doesn't help. However, it's also a representation of how far design has evolved and how fast it has evolved to follow the trends of society, whether they are technical trends such as new tools and techniques, or technology-oriented design, which is what AI and Photoshop when it came out was, or if it's about the reason behind bringing designers where they did not belong before. If you look at the history of design and how it started, it was a marketing impetus that brought the designer to the forefront. It was like at the service of the industry. It was to create brands that were memorable and that would sell better. It would to package, it would be to industrialize at a larger scale products that would be produced better.
More capitalism.
Right? Yeah, it basically serving capitalism, right? So at the core of the design existence is this philosophical question, is like, who do I serve? And I think I witnessed and participated in to some extent, like some redefinition of design. Where can it go? Where next? And can it serve the public good, the public interest? And can it serve causes that do not necessarily have neither the financial capacity nor the culture or the reflex of calling a designer for help? I'm thinking nonprofit organizations, cities, foundations, activists, people I like to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's interesting is that when you start defining where design can go, you can start having the collection of design for women empowerment, design for urban regeneration, design for diversity and inclusion, design for democracy. I happen to use the word design for democracy because I didn't invent it. It was actually launched as an initiative that became extremely important to the meaning and the value of a membership to AIGA, the organization that I mentioned earlier, which is the American Association of Professional Designers, that represents in the States. Today I don't have the 2 days numbers, but it's huge. It's like we're talking about 72 different chapters spread out throughout the States, whether they are city-based or
chapters. What do you mean chapters?
Like antennas of little organizations that represent the local organizations of designers in Utah, in LA, in Chicago, in New York, etc. And then there's a mother flagship.
And what is the function of this organization exactly?
It's a professional organization to represent
the designer,
the cause, the rights, the visibility, the chart of behavior. So it produces a number of content such as an annual award, training. It used to have a conference. It's been not so annual lately, but almost annual. They had an award. They had and they had a mothership in New York, which I joined after being associated with the New York City chapter, to basically advocate for the role of designers in society. So that's why I pushed when I was there, is like the design at the service of the city of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up building a number of initiatives with the city of New York.
Can you give us an example?
One example that comes to mind is the one that we built with a grant from Art Place Foundation called Design and Relief, which was literally, what can design help? How can design help a year after a superstorm Sandy, a natural disaster that literally destroyed the littoral of New England, and when New York was underwater for a few months without electricity? We had like candles for an entire week. And
wow.
So we came not right after the disaster, but we came 1 year after the disaster, which was interesting because it's no longer rebuilding and having, literally people donate their time to pass bottle of waters and pull out the mildew from the cellars and clean up, but like rebuild a sense of place, rebuild identity, rebuild a sense of hope for neighborhoods that were the most tragically destroyed, were the poorest, of course, because who lives on the water before the riches and the big superstar luxury buildings are being built on the coast? It's poor people. So we worked in 3 different neighborhoods of New York: Rockaway in Queens, Red Hook in Brooklyn, and the South Street Seaport in Manhattan. And in these 3 different neighborhoods, we deployed 3 different teams of, again, like multi-stakeholders: designers, strategists, storytellers, analysts, data analysts. And we identified in each of these 3 neighborhoods the resources, the people who are making things happen there, people who want to help make this neighborhood better. And we worked for over a year and a half in this project. And I lost the track of your question. What was
So like my question was like an example.
An example
but
of
yeah,
how
so like
design can be. So design became, to in this case, there was a base of graphic designers, but a broad definition of graphic designers. There were those that were very versed in poster making, like craft, like silk screen printing. There was those that were really good typographers. There were some that were more at ease with digital design, web design, digital products. There were some that were more strategists. There were some that were more storytellers, illustrators. These were the teams that we put together. Then we connected them systematically with a local actor, a resource super locally that had a role to play in redefining what this place could be, to give them back their hope, a vision of themselves, and a strong identity based on what is specific to the neighborhood.
But based on what? Based on
our listening to what they were saying. We went in and just spent a lot of time observing, meeting people, sketching, connecting with existing events, because needless to say, after a disaster such as Superstorm Sandy, people were sick of having people coming, helicopter people showing up and say, I'm here to help you, I'm going to save your life. And we came a year after the first help came from the Obama Fund called Rebuild New York. We came with humility and wanting to enable something without appearing to be saving the world, but trying also to identify how far could we go and what were we not able to help with. To give you an example, when we first arrived and walked around the projects, which are the social housing in Red Hook, the first thing people said to us is, you're here to help, you're designers, you're going to help us like clean up the cellars because we need help with that. And it was like, well, if we were just volunteers, yeah, we would do that. But we're not volunteers. We're professional designers trying to figure out how we can put design towards your cause, but by using the tools that we know how to leverage. So we ended up realizing in connecting with those social housing inhabitants, the residents that had been the most direct victims of the disaster, as well as the local nonprofit organization called Red Hook Initiative that was training the next generation of young kids that are out of school but are super tech savvy to learn how to master new skills. Mm-hmm. With them we worked, and we connected with another social service in the neighborhood. And what we heard mostly, where design could have a role to play, was communication. Lack of communication, lack of trust in communication. Where do you believe when you are in a disaster like this? Where do you go? What are the instructions? Are they coming from God, from the city, from your neighbor? Like, who to trust? So we ended up proposing a whole system of communication that would be locally made by the people for the people, with a whole system of complementary tools. A website that ended up creating a job for a person to actually take care of the postings on that website. Tickers of information that would be placed in critical points of the neighborhood, including the local library, which became also one of our partners, and a bulletin board that would be constantly put together by the people and connecting 3 different nonprofit organizations that basically were doing very similar stuff but had never talked to each other before we arrived. So I believe in the designers as that force of glue. It's like it connects dots, it connects people, it connects places, it connects ideas, and make them visually desirable, enticing, and beautiful.
That is very intense, actually, because what I was thinking while you were talking about this, how do you train designers to
become like that?
Yeah.
Well, that's a very good question. Part of the AIGA, the Professional Association for Design, for which we built that initiative, and the initiative came from an idea of the board, actually. After the disaster, they were like, what can we do? There was this great sense of responsibility. What can we do for our city? The AIGA has, by its nature as a membership organization, the need to produce training constantly, right? You constantly want to learn the next thing as a designer. And these initiatives that I ended up heading were very much like a training on the ground, because I believe in this. I believe in getting the designer outside of its studio or her studio, and putting them in reality, real life, as my daughter, IRL, like my daughter says. And it's hard because you meet real people that have real problems and they're really angry, and you're like, what am I doing here? Who am I to speak to this person? What's my legitimacy in having even this pretense role as a designer that actually can I make a difference in the life of these people? But it also has this incredible power to put you back into your feet as a citizen. And that's what I like about these tu vois, cette friction.
Yes, friction.
The friction between a reality and a desired or a more desirable solution. But how do you train people? Not everyone is cut for this. And I actually tested it in my teams of this particular project, Design Relief, but also with other initiatives such as this other one I conducted in East New York called Idea East New York, which was focused on empowering small businesses in a neighborhood that was under huge reinvestment from the city after being literally abandoned for 50 years about, having very ambitious equitable city standards promoted by the mayor of the time, and yet having this community of small businesses that were the spine of the neighborhood, but that never felt themselves like they were part of the city because they were like immigrants, they didn't speak English, they had little businesses, the businesses that happened to be open until midnight every day, very convenient for you when you get off your subway, and yet that did not feel that their voice mattered to the future of that place that was in the middle of a huge rezoning policy, that was in the middle of a huge gentrification threat, that was in the middle of reinvestment from the city trying to connect different services concerned by the redesign of that place, the Department of Transportation, the schools, the street, the buildings, the green spaces, etc. And we came in as the designers connected to this idea of giving a voice to those small businesses so that they could feel part of a larger community of change makers. And again, I forgot the question.
We were talking about
training.
Yeah.
Yes. So how do you identify the right designers able to go into a role of a researcher that has
a learner, I would say,
and a constant learner.
Yeah, a constant learner, definitely.
Somebody able to
so
take in.
Necessary. Yeah, it's so necessary to be in that environment. I think the friction is necessary, but I also like not to fall into the friction. You know what I mean? Like not be so anxious about it. Just like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Like just listening, absorbing what's going on and like learning in every moment of that. And then like see what...
Absorbing and translating.
Exactly.
So one of the frictions I recall from this project, and it's something that happens often in the life of a designer, I think, is if I could make it a sort of a symbolic moment of a leap that needs to be taken, is how do you take all this as a sponge? I always say designers are a sponge. They absorb, right? But then you've got to squeeze the sponge.
Yeah.
And only the best needs to come out. And what form does it take? Like, how do you actually make sense of what you've learned, what you've heard, what you felt, what you experienced into something that is a form? You need to shape it. You need to give it a form that is somewhat communicating what you're trying to do, right?
And involving everyone.
Involving everybody. That's legible. That's understandable. That's usable, obviously. But that also is somewhat symbolic, iconic. That's something like, wow, this represents this very unique thing. And we experienced this with the design friction unfold challenge, right? It was very hard to translate all those different elements that we had explored by meeting people, citizens of Grasse, and then visiting the recycle center, and trying to address this issue of friction. Is design a tool to engage with this friction, not erase it, but engage with it, facilitate dialogue when there's none, break away from binary vision of the world, Manichaean visions of the world, and allow for a debate, a space for debate, and contradictions and disagreements that accept each other.
And sure, this is the process of it, and like what's I as a participant in that boot camp, for example, I encountered was you're this sponge, right? You absorbed everything. Now, like how? Yeah, exactly. How would you put it out there? Like, what is the? Is there a method for that? Is there a method that we could follow to actually like be creative? I don't know, because like we did a lot. Like we talked, we put ourselves into this, but
yourselves and your souls,
everything we had, hearts, body, the mind, everything just we put it there. But like
it was very passionate. I think this is a good example where, to me, I was happy to take the challenge of this particular call for project, a competition, as a framework to address such a complex problem. It's not a problem, a complex notion, I should say. Design friction, or design to alleviate fight, opposition,
the conflict.
But the constraints of design that we were given to come up with a solution was an exhibition in the Milan Fair during the Salone del Mobile on a pedestal of 60 centimeter by 60 centimeter by 60 centimeter. So that constraint, I believe, was the wrong one.
Okay. Yes. I agree.
In design, however, you need constraints. That's the difference between art and design, right?
Yes.
So you need a constraint. You need to respond to something. You need to have the in the end the capacity to connect and serve somebody, a beneficiary, somebody who either called you to start with, or you are aiming to improve their lives with. But here I felt there was a little bit of a disconnect between the huge, ambitious, democratic debate that we were given and the translation into a cube, or something that should work on a cube. But each situation is different. We could have split up, and we could continue to split up all the different directions that you guys explored for exactly 5 days in a very intense mode of boot camp, and deconstruct each of them and try to figure out, okay, what do we do with this? We came up with a map that would be interactive map of locating your closest garbage can in the city. This is brilliant. There's no app that actually provides such a solution. Maybe we need to make it further with the city concerned by this particular topic, a medieval old town that has no room for a truck to go through every 3 days. Or we look at a more cohesive and systemic design solution, which is a map of all the stakeholders engaged in this issue around the friction with our waste. And that becomes a deliverable in and of itself.
I see. I mean, I believe that our project was well put for that constraint that we had, honestly, and it was an amazing experience. And so I as I hear you, you're saying that for designing a solution for a problem is not just an object or like one. You cannot like design one aspect of it. Like you have to just attack, each part of it. Like put designers on this part and this part and this part, and like try to fix each like it's not one whole to like I don't know how to translate this in my mind, but like it's so much to do. It's so much that it's just pouring away, wasting, that you have to kind of like grab everything, like try to figure out. But no, I feel like
Well, maybe it's what you're describing right now is the right 360 degrees mind of the designer. It's the capacity to step out and look around. Like, you're not alone. You're not starting from scratch. There's a huge history behind you, but there's also a reality around, like right around you, that you can actually look at, understand, start to feel, and get inspiration from.
Mm-hmm.
So a designer is not alone ever. He's always in relation with
someone. Yes.
But the ability to read and to have the honesty and the humility to recognize that you're not the artist that is going to come up with the latest, coolest, sexiest gadget, but you're here to translate that's why you're a sponge. You need to like get inspiration and absorb what's around you, and this capacity to take in, and not just take in. You need to regurgitate something that's meaningful, that's smart, that's strategic, that responds to what you heard was the need that you had identified. But you can't just pretend that you're just going to start from scratch every time and from nothing. You always are anchored. And this is my message, is like design is anchored. It exists at a place with people around, for people, for the life around it. And ideally, it needs to include those people not just as a side project, but as the origin of the design.
Well, fantastic. I think that's a perfect place to actually stop. And I think that was a great message. Thank you very much for being here, Laetitia.
Thank you for inviting me.
And yes, and I hope that I can have you back, because there's more stuff to talk about. Honestly, like I feel like this.
Sometimes it's easier, I'm not a designer. I always say I fell into the marmite of design, but it's always sometimes easier to show images along with the description of what I talk about.
Sure.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Perfect.